If I said that we were about to head for civilizational collapse, most people in the Western world, I'm assuming, would probably say that I'm a bit crazy. A bit of a loony, a bit of a conspiracy theorist. And they'd have good reason to. Other times in history where people have thought that we were going to have the end of the world or some sort of big collapse, such as, on the Mayan calendar, the 21st of December 2012, or perhaps even Y2K, it all turned out to be a whole load of nothing. This video is part of a playlist or a series of videos that I've been making over the last couple of years, where I discuss politics, climate crisis, activism, and I'm kind of just making these videos to consolidate my thoughts and ideally to share with my family and close friends on my assessment of life and all these important topics. If you haven't seen the other videos in this playlist, I recommend checking them out first. They will give good context for what I'm speaking about here. Some really important ones are the first one I made a few years ago, why I became an activist. Also, what radicalized me is another good one. But if you can check out all the videos in the playlist, I think they're really important. Talking about probably the most important topics and that there are, and they're really important to me. So I'd appreciate you checking them out. Despite the fact that I've given these examples of other instances where collapse has been a bit ridiculous, I do actually think that civilizational collapse is coming and is coming soon. There are actually plenty of signs that it's already begun or is about to begin. I haven't come to this conclusion all on my own. In some ways, I am parroting the ideas that I've listened to and read elsewhere. But like I said, in the context of the other videos that I've presented about especially the climate crisis and the state of politics in the world, I think these ideas I've heard recently are extremely reasonable. So far on my YouTube channel, I've mentioned a lot of books. And one that I haven't mentioned but has been on my radar has been by a person called Jem Bendel, and it's called Breaking Together. Now, I just listened to a podcast that was on the ABC. It was on the ABC website. And it was Jem Bendel talking about this exact issue. The fact that we are likely facing civilizational collapse. I would highly recommend that you also check out this little recording, this little podcast. You can just go to the ABC website. It's from ABC Radio National, and it's titled Jem Bendel, The Fake Green Fairy Tale and How to Survive Civilizational Collapse. In this podcast, he spruiks Breaking Together, his book that I mentioned. And I'm sorry I haven't got to reading it sooner. I've just ordered it. I'm really interested. I was really engrossed in this talk, this podcast. And this is what really prompted me to think about this topic some more. Now, Jem Bendel is not the only person who has been discussing this general idea of civilizational collapse as a result of the climate crisis and the state of politics around the world. Two of the main original founders of Extinction Rebellion, Gail Gladbrook and Roger Hallam, have recently been discussing this idea quite a lot, that perhaps we should be spending more time focusing on bringing community together, educating people in ways to navigate the fact that we are facing collapse, the collapse of society, the collapse of civilization. The fact that multiple important figureheads and academic thinkers on these issues are now discussing collapse and how to manage that collapse. That's what's got me thinking about it some more. One book that I have mentioned already in a couple of my videos is Regenesis by George Monbiot. And in that book, he discusses how fragile our food systems are. And I found that very confronting. In the fake green fairy tale discussion from the Festival of Big Ideas, this podcast that I listen to, Jem discusses this idea a lot of food systems and agriculture that we all rely on the world over. And within the context of the climate crisis, food supplies, crops and grains and things, their production is in decline. And the trajectory is that it's only going to continue that way. And the more we have extreme weather events thanks to the climate crisis, the harder and harder it's going to be to have sustainable agriculture. This is only one of many problems that we're facing that are going to lead us towards this civilizational collapse. The less there are resources, the more there's potentially going to be tension, there's going to be wars, there's going to be all kinds of issues. Roger Hallam recently posted a piece on his website. It's called The Elite Death Project: Why Capitalism is Choosing Collapse. It's a very interesting read, probably take you about 15 minutes. I'll link it here, another really important resource. Again, lots of other really important points are made on this piece that he's written. Please check it out. But if nothing else, he points out that the most important news in the world right now, from the godfather of climate science, James Hansen, is that the goal to keep global warming under 2 degrees Celsius is now implausible. So basically, we're not going to keep the global temperature below 2 degrees of warming from pre-industrial levels. The cost of closing that gap, just the 2 degrees, using carbon capture, is between $2.5 to $5 trillion per year, and it's continuing to rise beyond reach. The fact is more important than Trump, more important than COP or COP, the Conference of Parties. It's more important than any diplomatic process happening today. It's the mathematical announcement of collapse. So if we bring together any of the science or ideas that I've discussed on my channel so far about the climate crisis and capitalism or neoliberalism, the whole system of how our world works, we bring that together and we look at this. This is pretty convincing argument that, we're on a dangerous trajectory and we are heading towards civilizational collapse. I recently read an article on ABC's news website. It was written by business reporter Gareth Hutchins, and I was pleasantly surprised and impressed to see this particular article because it discusses something that is extremely important and I've only ever read about in books or articles online that are somewhat less mainstream. But here it was, just on abc.net.au, an article titled "How the Atlas Network is Shaping Your Life, Even If You've Never Heard of It." If, like me, you've been very interested in how we got to this point in humanity, with our politics, with big issues like climate crisis and wars, etc., you probably will have come across the term neoliberalism as a way of describing the particular style of capitalism that we're under, and I've discussed this in other videos. Well, this article on the ABC website, it discusses what neoliberalism is in a brief way, and importantly, it discusses think tanks. It discusses the think tanks that make up the Atlas Network and ones outside of that too. It describes the works of Friedrich Hayek and Milton Friedman, pioneers of the kind of politics that we have today and pioneers of these think tanks and their extreme influence over politics and the way the world works. If you really want to get to the core of how we're in such a crisis in terms of our politics, inequality, the climate crisis, etc., this is it. It's the state capture, the huge influence of billionaires and fossil fuel companies and all the different industries that have power because they have money. They have so much influence through these think tanks and through the processes that have been put in place thanks to the likes of Friedrich Hayek and Milton Friedman. In many ways, these videos that I'm making and posting on YouTube are just ways to spruik other resources that I've read, watched, etc., that I'd really like other people around me to also to read and to learn. If the takeaway from this video is that, then please check out this article from the ABC website. Please check out the podcast from Jem Bendel, also on the ABC website. Read more from Roger Hallam or Gail Gladbrook. Read more from George Monbiot and Jason Hickel. Another resource that I recently watched was the YouTube channel Just Have a Think. There was a video recently posted about our food systems, similar to the kinds of things that George Monbiot touches on in Regenesis. At the end of this video on the Just Have a Think YouTube channel, which is very sensible, very scientific, he says basically maybe his outlook is optimistic, maybe it's pessimistic, but he's just as any clever and discerning scientist would, he's just sharing the data. All of the books and resources that I discuss on this channel I think are really important and really trustworthy because they're highly scientific, they're extremely well referenced, and most importantly, they're based on real world data. Lots of it. They're really well referenced and they use lots and lots of data. The trouble I have with this Just Have a Think video is that I do think he's being too optimistic because he hasn't been critical of the systems that have created the situation that we're in where our food systems are collapsing. So if you check out this video on Just Have a Think about food system collapse, see if you agree with me. If you take into consideration the works of the other books and resources that I've mentioned in previous videos and in this video, you might acknowledge that positive change from where we are is unlikely to happen, and not on a big scale, thanks to the forces of neoliberalism, those in power, and the way that they control media and general thought processes around the world. We're this deep into climate crisis, into wars, into economic instability, into an increasing cost of living, and things aren't getting better. This is why. Here in Australia, and as far as I know, probably the world over, the cost of living is steadily increasing. Groceries, housing, everything is becoming more and more expensive, and wages are stagnating. This is an inevitability of neoliberalism, of the systems that we live under. If this continues, as we go into a more unstable climate, things are going to get really dire. By putting all this information together, by understanding neoliberalism, the climate crisis, the driving forces behind the world, I'm not surprised that civilisational collapse is predicted and is predicted to happen somewhat soon. I think we need to continue banding together, to find community, to be activists, to lessen the impact of all of this. It's all pretty intense, it's all pretty overwhelming, but it doesn't mean we can't make a difference. It doesn't mean we can't take on these huge forces. I don't think we should be too optimistic and think that we'll make it out the other side fine. But by being too negative, treating it like it's something that's too hard, too overwhelming, is just going to let it all happen at a faster pace and be worse. So we need to find ways of coming together as community to support each other. And as the cost of living gets worse, as resources get harder to access, as people become more and more divided, we need to find ways to band together, to stand together. We need to build community and find positive ways of moving into the future if this civilizational collapse does happen, as it appears it is going to. So that's my take anyway. It'd be great if it wasn't true. But this is what I believe. I honestly think that's what we're facing. So if I've convinced you in any way, or if I've intrigued you in the slightest, please check out these resources that I've mentioned. Please watch my other videos and have a think about the climate, politics, your place in the world, what we can do about it. I know that there are activists that are out there that have ditched the 9 to 5, they're running away from capitalism altogether, and they're finding ways to find community, focus on activism, and I'm impressed by that. I admire those people. There are plenty of us that are still living a normal working class life under capitalism and still finding ways to be involved in community and activism, which is great too. Whatever you do and whatever your path, I hope that you find some time to better understand all these issues and to treat the future and the others around you with compassion, with empathy, no matter where they're coming from, what their political point of view. The only way we're going to be able to get through this with any effectiveness, with any sort of optimistic and positive future, is to band together, work together, to compromise. So please, check out Jem Bendel, check out this article on the ABC website, check out my previous videos, all these books. Start thinking about how humans are a part of nature, they're not separate from it, and how that nature is falling apart thanks to the systems that we have employed to run our world. We might just need radical change if we're going to survive.